Alrighty. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wasm Cloud Wednesday. As always, I always say this. We've got an exciting agenda for today, albeit maybe a smaller one. A lot of the Wasm Cloud maintainers who are on the Cosmonic side are actually all at an offsite and hanging out in person. So, doing lots of planning, lots of thinking, which has been fun. Hey, that's me. So let me go ahead and the agenda. What we got for today. We have a not a new community member, but new to the community call, at least I think. Mike is going to be presenting an architecture diagram and some of the brainstorming and thoughts, and maybe even a demo of what he's been working on for a Wasm Cloud-based ETL pipeline platform. So Mike, that was my whole spiel. I know that maybe this is the first community call that you've been on. Would you be interested in doing would maybe start off with an intro, how you found Wasm Cloud, and then kind of go into what you're building. Floor is yours.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, Brooks. I've watched a few of the talks, so other meetings, so I have an idea of what's happening. But yeah, first time being on stage. I think my name is Mike. I've been around for longer than I want to admit at this point. Half my life, so in IT. And one thing that I've built recently for the last couple of years was some pipelines for crypto for a crypto client, basically getting data, getting it from somewhere from the blockchain into somewhere else. And I recently left that job, and one thing I came across about 20 minutes past midnight of 2025 was Wasm components. Previously, I heard about Wasm modules, wasn't really excited about it because of some of the limitations, in my opinion. And then I found Wasm components. And on January 1st, when I was all recovered and whatnot, I started to dig in and I came across wasmCloud. And I'm like, holy cow, this is cool. And I started to dig in. And one thing I want to build, or I'm building right now, is with a client here that is in IoT, an IoT company. And basically, the idea here is that instead of running everything in their cloud environment, we're looking at running some of the computational tasks closer to the actual machines that send the signals. And I came across some diagrams. I think it's on the Cosmonic website slash K8S or something for Kubernetes. But it looked exactly what I wanted to build, and I'm like, I started digging. What I want to do today basically is show a diagram of what I have in mind, and then show you how much of that I've built. And yeah, that's exactly the link that Brooks just shared. And I want to show you what I've got, and then really what I'm looking for is just somebody to tell me I'm out of my mind. This is never going to work, so I can stop working on it, or somebody telling me like this looks reasonable, keep going, so that I can make a decision after the call of how I'm going to spend my time. So let me figure out how I'm going to share my screen here, and I will go ahead and do that. But this looks promising.
Looks good. We can see your browser now.
Excellent. And you see something? Oops, what's this? Bypass this.
Yeah, we see ETL pipelines with Wasm
Yeah.
Cloud and the fun little dot
Awesome.
matrix. Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. So, yeah, ETL pipelines is what I'm called. I want to start with a high level diagram of what I have in mind. And this is just a pipeline. It's really not that exciting yet. But what we have is two things. One, some kind of controller component or app that runs where I can access it through the web UI or the CLI to start and stop a pipeline to get information on the runtime. But then the more interesting thing is the actual runtime part where we have some source, could be anything really, that kicks off a component, kind of step one in the pipeline. That does some processing. It then, goes to another step, and maybe it fans out into multiple steps, and eventually it puts some transformed data into a sink somewhere. Very, very high level. Now, all of these steps, they report back to the controller, or maybe this is a separate monitoring controller, I don't know yet, but I want to show you a bit more details of what these components look like. So if we look at one component here, step one, where we have a source interacting with the component. What I want to do here is basically allow customers to select in a web UI or through YAML, but in a web UI, select a source and then tell me what they want to do with that. So if we zoom in on that step one component over here, a component that has a source coming in consists of a couple things. One, an in-def star component with in Kafka in S3, whatever. That component then uses an out internal component, which is aware of what to call next. So in the step one component, it would then call step two. They get combined at build time into that green component here, so that in wasmCloud, this is just one component that gets deployed. But then that data basically likely going to be Avro, not fully sure, but because of the schema and whatnot, that's probably what it's going to be. It then calls a component that is step two, so inside that incoming and outgoing components. And here's where it gets a bit more interesting. Here we have the internal that knows how to receive the data, how to decompose it, whatever. And it then uses a customer.wasm file. This is just representing a component that's written by the customer of that platform. So this is where the actual business logic is going to live. This is where people do whatever they want to do with the data. And that all then goes to an out internal. We're familiar with that from over here, which then calls the next step. But again, this gets bundled into a component at build time, linked and whatnot. And then to send the data out, we have that same in internal, which knows how to accept the data, does some tracing, monitoring, whatever. And then it calls an out Kafka or HTTP and sends the data somewhere else. And all of that then gets combined into multiple steps within the pipeline. And yeah, so I think I'm going to stop here for just a second. But any initial thoughts, questions, anything I can answer?
Yeah, I mean, everybody should, excuse me, feel welcome to chime in here, but I immediately, your intermediate component is exactly the same pattern that we've used for a couple of different things, but most recently a demo on the Cosmonic side called Wasm Pay. We call this pattern the platform harness pattern, but you have like an untrusted, like a component that a customer provided, or maybe they just gave you the code and you compiled it.
Yeah.
And composing that by essentially surrounding the ins and outs so that you can like there's just a really tight interface that you that the customer needs to conform to, and then you control the ins and outs. We love that pattern. I really love what you put together here. My first piece of feedback for the component, the intermediate
Nice.
one, because I've made
Yeah, I
a
mean,
couple of
my goal here is really to reduce or like just limit to the amount of work a customer has to do. I want all the left stuff here. This is all drag and drop, clicking, whatever. This over here is all clicking, and then in between that red box is really all I want the customer to provide in terms of code. I do have one question that I would love to actually bring up. These two components they call each other directly. So the in star directly accesses functions within here. But then here, between step one to step two, I use messaging so that this is more asynchronous and can scale individually. That felt like a good thing. But I do have the question I wanted to ask was, I use obviously capability providers, right, for HTTP, for example. What I'm not sure yet is if I want to create that per pipeline, like an HTTP capability per pipeline, or one capability provider per like customer, right? If a customer has 5 pipelines, there would be in the Wasm Cloud environment, there would be one HTTP server, for example. And then I would use like path or something routing to go to the different pipelines, like whatever / pipeline ID or something. But I'm not sure what the overhead is of running, for example, 5 HTTP servers in one lattice, if I pronounce that correctly. But anyway, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about like, per one lattice. The lattice is I mean, there's a couple things, but essentially just like the network name space, and you're probably running your question about Lattice, I guess, is separate from the capability providers. You would need probably one HTTP server per Lattice.
Yeah.
Um, since they aren't like Wasm Cloud by default doesn't let you communicate between lattices, which is a method of isolation.
Yeah.
If that's a desired trait, we should talk about it. But the it's worth noting, just for the HTTP server, like the incoming bit, we do have a feature flag you can turn on for the host, which runs the HTTP server in the same process as the host. So the host actually opens up the HTTP address or socket, and then it does the path-based routing in process. So
Okay.
that can introduce some there's pros and cons for sure, but if you're concerned with like the highest density, not running an extra provider, that's an option for you too. But I would do one per lattice on the inbound to start.
Yeah. If it becomes an issue, then that's a good problem to have. If I ever get to that point. Nice. Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, and then you saw that probably the other question I had, I think I kind of answered that by myself. But should I do run lattice per customer or per pipeline? But then I realized if I do it per customer, I can do stuff like reusable pipelines, sub pipelines, all that kind of stuff, where I could have two pipelines or like something that keeps happening over and over. You could create a pipeline for that, and then multiple other ones can call into it, since it's in the same lattice. So I think I can answer that already by myself. But yeah.
Yeah, the isolation piece for the lattice is a key property. Like you can configure things in different lattices to talk to each other. It requires you configuring NATs. So if it's a property that you want, you control it looks like in this system you control all of the ins and outs of the component, like the customer isn't initiating any data or like any outbound connection. So you actually could run everything in the same lattice because you control all of the network traffic, and that way you can reuse things or not. It really just depends, like you said, about how reusable you want those pipelines to be.
Yeah, excellent. There's a scenario that I discussed with the client where these out components, for example, they would turn more into something like that, where there is also customer code. So it would actually be this one here. So if they have like something internal that they want to write to or whatever, that could be customer provided as well. So anyway, but yeah, this is, I mean, this gets me going for the next couple of little while. So um, yeah, I mean, that's really it. I just needed a gut check if somebody screams at me like, "What are you doing?" But doesn't sound like it. So I'll spend another week working on that.
Yeah, and don't just take my word for it.
No, no,
Masuda,
yeah,
you come off mute too earlier. I'm not sure if you had some feedback. Taylor also, check me if there's anything that you hate about what I said.
No, you said it, so I put myself back on mute.
nice. Okay, good. So that's two people. I'll take that. I'll take that as enough to keep going.
Three people. Nice. All right,
Excellent.
you're on something.
Yeah, I think ETL's like from the very beginning of Wasm Cloud, I thought ETL was or just in general async directed graphs was a definite use case that people could be. It's funny. It's almost like there are just so many good use cases that this one kind of maybe had a little less attention. But if there's definitely a lot that can be done here. This is great.
Okay, maybe I'll show up again in a couple of weeks and have an actual. Well, I have most of it built, but I'm just not in a space in a place to actually demo something that is impressive enough. So yeah,
Oh,
I might be coming back.
we demo not impressive stuff in here all the time.
In fact, don't demo impressive things. Save it.
Deal. Okay.
Save it for a conference.
All right. Deal.
No, this is awesome. Uh, let's see. Florian, Mark, just inviting everybody. Anybody have any thoughts or questions for Mike? while we got everything up here?
No, not really. Sorry for that, but I also really think that the topic is very interesting for sure because of all this dynamic part, which I also was really interested in Wasm Cloud in the first place for. So it would be really cool to see a live demo next time.
Oof, next time. Okay.
Yeah, next time means no,
I'm
no, no.
kidding.
Next time means that's not a specific amount of time. It's just the next one. So
Yeah. I'm joking. All good. Yeah. Sounds good. Awesome. Good. Yeah. Thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to get that in front of people and get some feedback. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, pleasure's all ours. Yeah, Mike, this sounds great. Looking forward to seeing kind of the progress here. As you're working through, writing these components, doing the composition. I sent them a couple links over to the Cosmonic Wasm Pay example if you want to use that for some inspiration, especially some of the like WebAssembly composition bits, or some of the patterns as you're working through it. Would love to hear what's useful, and I mean, you kind of dropped into the Wasm Cloud Slack and said, "Hey, I have a demo," which I love. Everybody should be encouraged. Everybody should feel encouraged to do that. But if you have any feedback as you are building the thing, good things, bad things, all make the community tools better. So we'll definitely take it.
Sounds good. Yeah. I'll check the links out and provide feedback. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Mike, for coming on. This was actually, like I mentioned, a bunch of us are at an offsite, so we're doing all of our own planning and fun things. So that was actually the main agenda that I had for today. I didn't do the little pre-flight check, but does anybody have anything that, like in the Wasm Cloud community or in the broader WebAssembly ecosystem, that they wanted to queue up as a topic for today? Alrighty. We did the build time check and the runtime check. I think we can go ahead and end it here. I will give people a little bit more time back for the first. Wait, it's not the summer yet. Whatever. Never mind. First Wasm Cloud Wednesday of the summer is what I was.
After Memorial Day, unofficial
Gonna say,
summer.
but we gotta
Unofficial
wait a little
summer.
Yeah. US summer. If you're in the upside down, then it's currently your winter.
Oh
Is
yeah.
there
Sorry.
anyone from Australia or New Zealand on this call? Or Sub-Saharan Africa or South America?
Lachlan's not in the room, thankfully.
I know I was about to say
Ah.
Lachlan. Where's Lachlan at? He knows what it's
But
like to live in the upside down.
All right. For everybody in the upside down, so sorry about your winter. Everybody
It's
else,
unofficial winter.
unofficial winter, because not really. For dark now. Thank you everybody for coming on to for coming on to Wasm Cloud Wednesday. It was a great one. Looking forward to the agenda next week. And as always, have a Wasm Cloud day.